Okay, good morning, Chavra. Today is the 19th day of Menachem of. Beautiful Wednesday morning, and we're in the Chayenu on page 71. A new chapter, a new section now called, it's Epistle 6. You got us a Kodesh, and Epistle 6 above. When a person arouses their compassion by giving tzedaka to those who are in need, and especially Yidden and Eretz Yisrael that are in need, they thus solicit Hashem's compassion towards themselves. You think you're giving, you're really receiving. This is why tzedakah is called planting, for we sow our compassion, and in return, we receive Hashem's compassion. In today's lesson, contemplating the exaltedness of the divine of Hashem, and yet becoming aware of one's lowliness, brings one to the service of Hashem with compassion. But tzedakah secher emes b'shlei yiralef. One who sows tzedakah has a reward of truth, like schar. Pirush sheschar zriyas hatzedakah imes emes. This means that the attribute of truth is the God-given reward for sowing tzedakah. The pasuk says, "You give truth unto Yaakov," which would appear to indicate once again that the attribute of truth is granted from above. We discussed this in the Maimer that Yaakov is the epitome of truth, and that's the representation of the third Beis Hamikdash, which will be eternal, just like truth is enduring forever. Ushavacha dekudsha b'richu misader nevia v'cholu k'mesh kasav zayir hakadosh. And here the prophet Micha speaks the praise of Hashem as it is written in the Holy Zohar, meaning rather than petitioning Hashem, he's giving him praise. This means that it is Hashem who gives the attribute of truth into Yaakov. And the praise is granting him and thanking him for fulfilling the promise of granting the attribute of truth to Yaakov. Tzarech Lavin has to be understood. So let's understand this. Does Yaakov have no truth until Hashem blesses him with the attribute of truth? However, it's well known that the attribute of Yaakov is the attribute of compassion. And the service of Hashem through compassion. And compassion derives from the arousal in a man's heart of profound compassion for the divine spark of his soul. So a person feels bad for the neshama inside of himself that's in galus. He has compassion on his soul. He also has compassion on those around him through giving tzedakah, through reaching out in any possible way to help others. The neshama, the soul becomes, the spark within a person becomes very distant from the light of Hashem when it comes into this world, and it's involved in all the things that the body which houses it is involved with in this dark galus. So when a man finds himself straying in a state of spiritual darkness, he can thus awaken within himself a feeling of compassion for the soul spark within him that he himself has banished from the light of his divine source. When he does an avera, when he has an evil thought, he pulls that soul, that spark, along with him. So how does he have Rachmanus on this soul? This arousal of compassion derives from a man's understanding and deep cognition of the greatness of Hashem. We're saying, thank you, Hashem, for all the wondrous things that you're doing and the miracles that are happening before our eyes. We choose to recognize them. Hashem is doing so much kindness to us and compassion to us every single day. How even the most infinitely sublime worlds are considered as nothing. For everything that they have is just a gleam, a little glimmer, a reflection of a single letter of Hashem's name. As we said that the world to come was created by just the letter Yud. The spiritual worlds, all of which are included in the term world to come, were thus all created by means of a single letter Yud of the divine name. That's it. And it's this radiation and reflection, this little ray of godliness, of the life-giving energy that flows from the name of Hashem to animate the higher and lower beings. That there is a distinction and difference with respect to the higher and lower beings. And what's that difference? That this world was created through the Hey, and the higher worlds were created through the Yud. Okay, that's the difference. And also all the variety of details within each world. So on the one hand, we're all nothing compared to Hashem. On the other hand, everything is made up of a distinct letter and purpose. And everything is determined by differences in the combinations of letters through which they were created. So too, the distinction between the temporal dimensions of past, present, and future were also created with a variation of letters, combinations, and the like. And all the variety of events throughout the changing times. All these too are determined by differences in the combinations of letters. By the way, all the components of electronics and technology today were all around hundreds and even thousands of years ago. But David decided this is the when it's going to be discovered. This is when it's going to be utilized. And heard some Rabbanim and Askanim say that like the greatest challenge and Yetzirah of this generation is the cell phone, is that computer which is in your pocket, which could take you to a crazy place. Urging, by the way, it's not even rabbis, but lahavdil, even goyim and secular professors keep the phones away from the kids as long as possible. They become so reliant. They're not crying on the first day of school or camp that their parents are walking away and dropping them off. They're crying because they can't be on their iPads during the day. It's tough. But anyway, the point is that the letters of the name, the different letters and combinations, allow for different things to be revealed or discovered, if you will, in different times, past, present, and future. So all these changing times, all these things are determined by differences in the combinations of letters. For these combinations of letters are the conduits of the life-giving force that proceeds from the attributes of Hashem and His name. As explained the Kodim. Okay. So all the above mentioned differences are to be found only in the flow of vitality which emanates from Hashem's attribute, and which then descends through the letters of Hashem's creative speech. So that's all the extension of Hashem, so to speak, the rays of God, the words of Hashem, the letters that come from His name. When it comes to Hashem Himself, I, God, have not changed as a result of all these different creations. This world, the spiritual world, from the highest level to the lowest level, Hashem doesn't change, no matter what the progression is. Just as God is present in the higher world, so too He is present in the lower worlds. Everything equal. So the higher worlds and the lower worlds differ only in relation to the stream of life-giving energy and flow that flows forth from Hashem. This vitality is more revealed in the higher worlds and is more concealed in the lower worlds. And when it comes to Hashem, in terms of time change, there's no difference in God's perspective. Past, present, and future is all one. And it's not even all one. It's just, it is, whatever it is. Can't say it's all now, because then that's a time also. So it gets a little tricky. God is unique, singular and unique after the creation of the world, just like He was before the creation of the world, before the 6 days of creation. But how can Hashem's absolute unity remain unaltered with all that's going on? Hashem is busy talking to us and worrying about every little thing, as we just said. How could it be if he's so busy doing everything else? How could it be that he's not changed? What, Hashem got angry? Moshe hit the rock instead of spoke to the rock. Things happen, right? Maybe just like time changes, and we live in a completely different generation, even compared to our parents, who never even dreamed of a cell phone. So how can we say God didn't change? He's obviously very invested in the world. He's involved. He cares about us. Talk about compassion from Hashem, the greatness of Hashem. Okay, here's an example. Every mashal has its holes, but just as a single letter of man's speech or even of a thought is of absolute no consequence in relation to the entire being and essence of the rational soul, metaphorically speaking, to appease the ear in order to give finite mortals some inkling, as we were saying, like this mashal, the emes ein areich elecha ksiv. But there's no comparison when it comes to our example here and that of Hashem. If you say one word now, in a month, for sure you're not going to remember that one word, unless you record it or you're distinctly focusing on it. But if we're just having conversation, we met yesterday, we spoke, I don't remember every word. Probably won't even remember every word by the end of the day. Forget about 2-3 years from now. So in the lifespan, in the time of the lifespan of a person, a word or a thought that goes through your mind, you may remember. You have to work hard to remember. Did I say it this way? That? There's certain things, you do remember, but it's not significant. It doesn't make a major change. It's the same thing with Hashem. It doesn't make any change with what's going on here. He created our world. It's just in his thought. That thought or that word came into being. But he continues and he says, yeah, but this is just metaphorically speaking. When it comes to Hashem, we can't even compare. For us, it is something. A word actually changed something. Somebody got a job because I said he's a good guy. Somebody lost a job because I said he's not responsible. One word. Say one word about a guy and he could be gone from the shul. It's like somebody called me once recently. A little something with his wife. She wanted to wait for they were waiting for a car service and they weren't comfortable with one car service. The next one was going to take an hour to get there and it was going to be more money. And I said, you're on vacation. Just hang out. Just relax. Like, don't make it a big deal. And he's like, yeah, but I said, if it's the money, like in 2 weeks, 2 months, 2 years, is that gonna make one bit of a difference? What's the most important thing? You're away with your wife and you're on vacation. Spend time. Sit down somewhere and talk. You're gonna get in the cab, there's gonna be somebody else there. Then you're gonna go in a hotel, you check it. Everything starts to get busy. Even on some people's vacation, they come back exhausted. Call me later, he's like, brilliant, I wish I could do that myself, but it's easy to give advice. So that's the thing, like, do you really remember something 2 weeks, 2 months, 2 years down the road that you said? And sometimes we do. Sometimes we do if we choose to. With the Eibishter, it's not the same thing. So unlike the single letter of thought and speech that bears some degree of comparison to the soul, albeit an infinitesimal one, creation stands in no proportion whatsoever to Hashem. Makes no change and no difference. This underlies what we say in the davening, the king who is exalted alone from aforetime. The blessings of Shema. Okay. This means just like before creation was only Hashem, so too now Hashem is exalted and elevated beyond the days of the world. This means that Hashem is exalted and elevated, transcending the dimension of time, which is known as the days of the world. Every day has a beginning and an end, and days pass. This is because the life force of all the days of the world, the life force of the dimension of time, derives solely from the spiritual level known as the king, the spirit of Malchus. As explained elsewhere. Okay. So since Hashem utterly transcends creation, which is absolutely of no consequence in relation to his essence, Harachmanos gedayla ma'oid al nitzas sheikhin beguf chashuch v'ha'afel mashka dechivya. It follows that there's an extremely great cause to feel compassion for the spark, which is a part of Hashem that dwells in the dark and gloomy body, the hide of the snake. Mashka dechivya. Ve'ol lekabel tuma lihiskoel v'chol atayves rachmana litzlan. The body is liable to contract impurity. So imagine this God that's not affected by the world whatsoever. He takes time to put a piece of himself inside you. Then you drag it into a dark place, bring it into a very dark place. So what then? If not for Hashem serving the man as a shield, and giving the person strength and might to wage war with the body and its passions and to triumph over them. So even when the body does not actually lust after physical pleasures, the very fact that it wants to do so, it's so inclined, points to its lowly state. Maybe you don't act on certain things. You see certain things, you get excited from them. You're like, oh, that's not for me. I got to focus on my avodas Hashem. Happens. We used to call them pop-ups on the computer screen. Now it's everywhere. You literally can't avoid it, no matter how holy a Jew you're trying to be. If you have a phone with internet, or even if you're walking down the street, you're going to see something which you shouldn't. Something flashes through your mind. You say, then you push it away. So even that alone, the fact that it's so inclined points to its lowly state. The fact that it even excites you and gets you that you pushed it away, good. But it's within such a body that the divine spark is obligated to spend its days. Obliged. And this is the meaning of the continuation of the davening of the prayer, Master of our strength, shield of our salvation. Hashem is so compassionate that He even gives us the ability to overcome the darkest of desires and lusts and ideas and words and thoughts and speech and everything else. After extolling God as the King who is exalted alone forever, and beseeching Hashem in His abundant mercies, have compassion on us, we continue with the above quoted phrase. And with these words, we affirm that Hashem provides us with an encompassing light and power, far transcending man's own puny powers that enables us to triumph over the body and its passions. Okay, so we're still in the middle of this sugya. Where are we talking about? What are we talking about as far as Hashem having compassion? And Hashem didn't change, but we'll hold that thought for a moment. And the takeaway for today is reflection of compassion. Hashem transcends time and space. Creation did not change anything in the Creator. My soul comes from the abode above into this material world. However, my soul has the power to succeed. Hashem gives it the koiches. You could think about the fact that Hashem transcends time and space and still wants to protect you from outside influences and disturbing, challenging things that are trying to take you away from your mission, your service of Hashem. So know that even in a dark moment or place where you might be, whether it's anger, temper, depression, lustful desires, whatever it might be, we have the strength because Hashem is looking out for us. He's our shield, He's our salvation, and you'll overcome. But you have to put in your effort as well, of course. And when you do that, Hashem will assist and give you the strength to overcome. And then you get back to business. Do what you got to do, and you daven, you learn, you do mitzvahs. We started off how chesed, tzedaka, really compassion through charitable deeds, is the truth. That's the ultimate truth of compassion, the way Hashem gives us kindness and compassion. All right, that's it for today. A lot to think about. We'll see you tomorrow.